Happy New Year, everyone. It's been a minute. Let's talk about my favorite reads from 2025. So, starting off with a single honorable mention, which is Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. This book is wild. There's all these anime-like action sequences. Gabriel is just a lot of fun as a main character. I love his character dynamics. We have like a bit of a found family for a short period of time, but then there's all of these crazy twists and turns, and wild things happen, and there's insane violence. Some horror stuff. It's not exactly horror. It's not that scary, but it's just a lot of fun. I think from a plot perspective, from a character perspective, relationships, a lot of stuff to really enjoy about this. I was not expecting to like this one as much as I did, but I had a lot of fun with it. I think the one sort of drawback which sort of stops it from breaking into the top 10 is I just found the writing to be a bit tedious. It's very flowery, which is fine, but it's also very repetitive. It's like every paragraph has to have a simile in it. He was quick as silver. It was soft as velvet. It was hard as stone. Like stuff like that, and it's just non-stop, like just so repetitive. And then there's just such an overabundance of like flowery adjectives describing stuff. So it's small writing quirks, which I guess over the length of the book can be end up being tedious. But like in terms of plot, in terms of characters, this was a lot of fun. I actually for some reason, I compared Empire of the Vampire a lot to Sun Eater, and I ended up enjoying this one quite a bit more. So that's not saying something, I think. Number 10 for me, so now getting into the list itself, number 10 for me was Call of the Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. Wow, talk about writing talent. I mean, the way that R.J. Barker, he practically almost created like a new language or a new dialect of English to infuse his world with, and to infuse like the dialogue of his characters with, and it gives everything so much authenticity. It's almost like it's very similar to just the way pirates speak, right? The way we think of pirate speaking, but the way he was able to do that and then like pull it through for the entire trilogy was just really something else. The world, I mean, everyone talks about the world of the Bone Ships. I think it's fantastic. It's so like imagination bending, and yet it's not. When people were talking about this series before I started, I thought I was a little bit intimidated, but in reality, it wasn't actually that hard to get situated in the world. I think the pros really helped with that, but it was just really cool, just like really cool things happening. I mean, there's giant bone dragons and bone ships and stuff, and the plot itself was very driving. Like it never felt like it was slow. There's lots of crazy things. Towards the end, it got a tad confusing, but that's fine. The characters were a lot of fun as well. I ended up being pretty attached to them, and I put the third book on this list, but I think probably the first or the third, either of them could stand here. The second one was really good too. I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, so that was number 10 was Call of the Bone Chips. Going on to number 9 for me was Lord and King by P.L. Stewart. So this is book 3 of A Drowned Kingdom. If you're not familiar with A Drowned Kingdom, it's an indie series. I think PL is aiming for 7 books, and I think he's written 5 now. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of PL's writing. A Drowned Kingdom is essentially, imagine Atlantis. So you have this kingdom who are very good at conquering people, and they're like the top of the world, and then a volcano blows up, their kingdom ends up underwater, and the refugees from that kingdom, they're led by the prince, who was second in line to the throne. And this is a guy named Othrin. And he ends up taking his people off to a different continent where they try to establish, I guess, a new kingdom. And it's a really good book, a really good series, I should say. PL writes with such a rich, classic fantasy voice. I just love, it's very reminiscent of The Masters. I feel like despite that, it's very readable. Othran is, I think, mostly an unlikable character. Most people would say that. I actually have gotten and grown to like him over the course of 3 books. You see, he's a deeply flawed character. I think by any modern sense of morality, you're like, this is a horrible dude. But at the same time, within the context of his world, it makes so much sense why he is the way he is. And I think Lord and King, book 2 had a lot of action, and there were some insane action sequences. And I actually liked book 1 more than book 2, but I think book 3 was maybe my favorite so far, because we kind of toned down the action. We have way more political drama. There's a lot of politics in this series, and we ramp up the political drama, which I love. And then there were just all of these wonderful intimate moments where Othrin's prejudices are being challenged, and yeah, it was just really well done. And I'm excited to see where PL goes. I think he's really setting himself up for some awesome character development. All right, number 8 is Violence and Vigilance by David T. List. This one came out of nowhere. So this is another indie. It's an indie book. It's very much grimdark, and it is an absolute banger, an utter hidden gem. This is a story with two equally compelling plot lines. The characters are very nuanced. I don't want to give too much away. There's a bit of a gladiator thing that happens, and then kind of like a magic school thing also. But anyway, like it's unique. Characters are nuanced. There's these awesome relationships with like lots of growth. The action sequences are wild. There's like the fantasy creatures in this. There's land sharks. I mean, the magic is original. We even have it's really damn good. I think the thing I like the most is just David's writing is so perfectly suited for this genre. It's gritty, it's descriptive, but it never loses clarity. You never get bogged down in overdone introspection. All of the characters are like very gray. And there's these in-world sayings that are hilarious, like "Don't feed the birds." It's a long book. The audiobook is excellent. I think that this is a real hidden gem. Like, I really think if people enjoy grimdark, I really hope they check out Violence and Vigilance. I think it's quite different from Abercrombie, but at the same time, it's like if you like Abercrombie, you'll probably like this. Just really well written, awesome stuff, awesome story. Like, it never once dragged. I think it's excellent. Number 7 for me was Senilin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. Talk about authorial voice. Bancroft's writing style is just so compelling and full of character and atmosphere. Instantly I was in love with this world and Senilin himself and Maria, and like I was just so invested in the main plot of this story right from the get-go. Which doesn't always happen. I don't love the way the series ended, but I think like books 1 to 3 were just incredible. I feel like book 4, we kind of started losing some of the magic of this like incredible world he made, but that's okay, because like the experience in book 1 to 3 was just so worth it. It's just so unique. The sense of just voice and like everything that's happening and mystery and as reveals happen, and I was just really invested in Senilin Ascends. I think it is an excellent fantasy. Number 6 for me was actually not fantasy, it was historical fiction, and that is Imperium by Robert Harris. I am not sure if I would pick book 1, 2, or 3 in the series. Like, it all kind of blends together for me, but I just adored it, the entire thing. If you're not familiar, Imperium is the story of Cicero, and Cicero was a very famous Roman senator and orator, kind of known for his speeches in the Roman Senate, and this is around the time of Caesar, maybe a little bit before Caesar was, when Cicero was at his peak. And so we tell the story through the voice of Cicero's secretary, a guy named Tiro. Everything just feels very well researched. It just brings Rome to life very vividly without like getting bogged down in descriptions and stuff like that. And I was just crazy invested in like these wild politics. Like, you realize when you read something like this, like, oh, politics really haven't changed in like 2,000 years, right? And even though I was like, oh, Cicero is just this really cool badass who's also an extremely flawed character and who does a bunch of stupid things as well. But I was also very invested in like this completely fictional character, Tiro, and his life, since he's kind of like standalone for just your pretty normal guy who's like caught up in all of these Roman politics. And he ended up being a very endearing character. Like across the entire series, it kind of reminded me in that sense of the Warlord Chronicles. It's very, very, very different from Warlord Chronicles. Sorry, I don't remember many action sequences in Imperium, but just the way the story was told and how you end up being invested in like this side character who's a bit of a nobody. So Imperium by Robert Harris, really, really good historical fiction. All right, we're into the top 5 now. So number 5 for me was The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. And it's kind of surprising this isn't higher, because I think Abercrombie has more or less been my favorite author for a while now. I think that The Devils was just such a fun romp. I mean, Abercrombie turned up the wit to 11, and I understand that might be a bit tedious for some people, but I just ate it up because I just love his wit so much. And it's just this driving, hilarious plot, and it's unrelenting. And we have this mad misfit crew of like just people who don't belong, and they're all like very broken, flawed in different ways, and they're all pretty funny characters. Abercrombie does, like, his characters are basically caricatures, right? Like, they're not that realistic, but they're just so fun to be around, and there's such a sense of voice from each of them. And yeah, so it's pretty interesting how different the Devils was from the First Law. Compared to the Blade itself, like, this has, like, the Blade itself, people say it meanders, there's no point to it. This is very much driving. Like, from the start, you know what's happening, and like we're going for it, and then there's twists and turns, and then yeah, we end up somewhere in the end. And yeah, I think the whole journey is a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, compared to like Age of Madness, I don't think that there's as much of an emotional connection with these characters. But I mean, keep in mind it's only book one, right? Of I think a 3-book series. So we're gonna see how it ends up being. I think when we come out with the sequels, but either way, it was a different experience from the First Law. I don't like it as much as the First Law, but at the same time, I think it was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it, and I'm interested to see where Abercrombie goes next. Number 4 for me was actually, I think it was the first book I read this year, and that is The Blue Flames by Jacqueline Hagan. And oh man, was this something. So the Riverfall Chronicles, I don't know if, I hope you guys are all familiar with it. It's pretty popular indie series. But yeah, like, how do you even describe it? It's kind of like Gaslamp, and there's a crew of characters who are on the run. But essentially, I think the heart of Riverfall Chronicles is just maybe like the best found family I've ever read. Like, by book 3, the Blue Flames is book 3. By this point, I was just so utterly invested in this found family and all of these lovable characters who are all very flawed, and they're kind of broken, but they have each other, and it's just, there's moments of like such amazing coziness and intimacy and just human connection in this story, followed by like utter heartbreak and intense action and just like edge of your seat kind of stuff. I feel like the Blue Flames, the book 3, felt like very much like the culmination of, I guess, like the first half of the series. And it's so atmospherically written. There's this wonderful balance between dread and horror and tension, and like I said, coziness and intimacy and these heartwarming moments. The strength of the series, very much that found family, and my heartstrings, like, how do I describe this? Like, this entire book, my heartstrings were getting tugged like every which way. And there are eldritch elements in this. It's not really the thing that I'm like super keen on, but at the same time, I don't mind so much because I just love the characters and like what they're going through. Riverfall Chronicles, I think, it's a favorite series of mine for sure. And book 3, I read book 4 after this, and I liked it, but not quite as much. I think book 3 is really, really the pinnacle of what's come out so far. I can't wait for the next ones, because I'll definitely be jumping on those right away. All right, we're into the top 3. So number 3 for me was League of Dragons by Naomi Novik. And this is the final book in the Tamriel series, and I'm kind of just using it as a placeholder for the entire series because this series just stole my heart in this year. I mean, man, okay, I talk about prose way too often. I think Naomi Novik has some of my favorite prose I've ever read. It's a perfect balance between the older literary feel of the time period while also being insanely readable. I mean, if you don't know, Temeraire is of course about a dragon rider fantasy set during the Napoleonic era, so it's kind of like an alternate fantasy, an alternate history. So we have real world characters like obviously Napoleon and Nelson and all these like insane characters that we know about. But at the same time, you have dragons. Like, it's just so much fun. The heart of this story is the bromance, it's the dragon rider bond, it is the bond between Lawrence and Temeraire, and it is just everything. I adore it. Man, that relationship is honestly one of my favorites in all of literature. Like, all I wanted to do was just chill and hang out with my two buddies, Lawrence and Temeraire, and they're both such great characters. And like, it's not to say that the series doesn't have action. I mean, the action sequences in the series are utterly breathtaking because Novik created this like unreal form of combat where essentially the dragons are warships. So each dragon has like a crew of like, I don't know, like 50 people on there or something, and they all have like their muskets and they're like firing at the next dragon, and they're all like trying to jump across and board them. And the dragons themselves are fighting, and it's just all this insane action sequences, and yet the intimate, cozy moments, man. Like, I wanna. It's like, it's so easy to just like come back to your comfortable place. You know, and Temeraire is my comfortable place this year. I fell in love with it. The dragons themselves, they're such colorful characters. Each of them is so unique. They're always bantering and bickering with one another, and at the same time, they're slowly discovering their place in the world. And you have all of these subplots about the social issues that dragons face, where you know they're like these sentient beings, and yet they're kind of treated like, I wouldn't say slaves, but like they're not really respected that well in society. Yeah, Temeraire is something special. Not any one of these books really blew me away. I think probably number one I loved, number five was incredible, the last one was amazing. But the thing as a whole, it just cemented its place in like my all time favorite list. I think I found like probably even the worst books, like people say aren't that good, I just enjoyed them so much because I enjoyed hanging out with these characters. So yeah, number three was League of Dragons by Naomi Novik. All right, we're into the top two, and my second favorite read of the year was All the Seas of the World by Guy Gabriel Kay. Talk about magical. This is the sequel to one of my favorite books of all time, which is A Brightness Long Ago. I don't quite know how to describe the plot here. Essentially, you have a merchant and this woman who was kidnapped by corsairs, and she had a very rough life, and they end up being hired for an assassination, which kind of goes awry, and then they end up getting involved in all of the crazy politics of their time, and lots of stuff happens, but it's hard to like just describe the plot. I think it has to be experienced. It should be read after A Brightness Long Ago, and I'm mostly surprised that people don't rate this book higher in the GGK catalog. Like whenever I see GGK tier lists, I feel like All the Seas of the World tends to be lower in it, but I haven't read all of his books, but I find like this newer Renaissance Italy sort of style that he has, era I should say, are the favorite of the ones that I have read, where I just feel like his newer work, he's just really mastered the language, and you know the way he plays with it, the way he plays with tenses, and you know his first person, third person, present tense, past tense. You really feel like you're in the hands of a master, and then he's like weaving a web around you, and all of a sudden you're so emotionally invested in these characters and the plot itself. And you know, on the surface, like everything seems slow, but when you're in it, like you're really in it, and you're just like truly just immersed in this rich, amazing world and language, and these characters who just feel so realistic. GGK is really special. I don't know if he's for everyone, but I think that if you end up enjoying him, then he'll easily become one of your favorite authors. I don't think there's anyone who's like, I think GGK is okay. I think it's like either you're like, not for me, or yeah, he's an all-time favorite. And it's just like the problem with his work is like it's hard to put into words what makes it so special. It's like you really need to just experience it. And I mean the audio narrations for this are also fantastic. Simon Vance, I think, was the one who did this one, and just amazing. Yeah, I still think about All the Seas of the World quite often, and I think about A Brightness Long Ago, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna run out of GGK books soon. Yeah, so this was number two for me. I wish I could say more. I wish I could like give you a better description of how it made me feel. All I can say is like it made me feel everything, right? Like it was just incredible. It was such an amazing experience to read this, and like every time I read GGK, it's like some of the most immersive stuff. So yeah, that was number two for me. All right, so for my favorite read of 2025, I'm going to cheat a little bit and combine two books into one here. And that's only because these two are actually really just one very long book. I'm talking about The Winds of War and War and Remembrance by Herman Wouk. So it's kind of a surprising pick for my favorite. Every November, I try to read some wartime historical fiction. So this year I picked these guys, and Winds of War is basically a family drama set during World War II. So it goes from 1939 to 1945, and we're following an American family. And even though we're following an American family, this actually covers the full course of the war and across all theaters of the war. And it's just like, I found myself speechless at the epic scale of this story. You know, like usually World War II fiction, it's like, okay, we're honing in on like maybe this person and when this thing is happening during this specific period. But no, this covers the entire thing. And we see these characters go from children to, you know, like what their various different experiences they have during the war. It's a wide cast of characters, Like we were talking about extended family, we were talking about in-laws and all that stuff. But anyway, like just seeing their growth and their change, and like it's very intimate a lot of the time. It's got some, and yet obviously it's got some great action, and then at the same time it's almost like a history book where I just ended up learning so much more about the war. Like this is obviously a period of history that like I've studied and I've always been very interested in. And then while reading these books, I end up on this crazy World War II kick. So I'm watching more podcasts and documentaries about it. But apart from all that, like the storytelling is just so compelling. You have all these characters and they have very individual struggles, and everything just feels so real. Like we don't always get the sense of history where like, oh, okay, in 1939, like these are the three main events that happened. In 1941, like these are the main events that happened. But actually, on a day-by-day basis, like people who were living that, right, there were like a lot of days between those events, and it's like, how did that feel? What was the sentiment? What were people thinking, and all that stuff? And this book just captures that sense of time of how this war just dragged, and it was just horrible, and all that stuff. And there's people who are just having the most horrific time, and we have that perspective. And then there are others who are just enjoying their careers, right? And they're like progressing and going up, and like everything's great. So it's just the great contrasts of this period in history. It's just so well captured, and it's a powerful look into what life was like in that era. The book feels spectacularly well researched. It's a very compelling narrative. Like it's all fiction, obviously, but like it's fiction set within reality, right? It's historical fiction, and it's very readable. It's my book of the year for that reason. It drew me in. I was very attached to this family and all of the characters and like their own dramas, and because like they're very human, they're very flawed. They do stupid things. There's a bunch of romance. There's all that stuff, and like it's just really well written. If you're interested in a wartime novel, like I said, this is a very very long duology, but at the same time, it's very sweeping. Like this will scratch your itch for wartime fiction for a long time, I would say. Excellent place to start. I think Winds of War, War and Remembrance, my favorite reads of the year. I was just so into it. And yeah, so that's my top 10. If you guys comment below what your favorite reads were, or if you have any particular thoughts, am I way off base? Did I say something crazy in this list? Did I miss something? What should I be reading this year? Drop it down in the comments below. Guys, Happy New Year. I'll try my best to post more videos. I'm sorry, I've been very much in writing mode. I finished the first draft of my new book, which is really exciting. It's very long. A lot of editing is required. But yeah, so that's where we're at right now. Thank you guys. Have a happy new year.